Hi everyone, welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Library. I'm Damon Tamanawala, my co-host Garrett McGillivray, and today we're joined by Bob Courteau, CEO of Altus Group. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me. Great to see you guys.
So usually we love to get a little background
Sure.
on our guests. How did you get to this position? Can you give us a quick summary of how you got to where you are?
My whole career has been in technology, and pretty lucky because I joined the industry in the 80s when it was really starting to form, and I was really fortunate to join with Hewlett-Packard in their global internship program, and that set me up pretty well because I came out of a business background. There was a shift going on from engineers in these technology companies to business grads. And so the ramp up on learning was incredible. And so that's kind of foundation of my career.
Yeah.
I work
you gotta, I think
right in here?
Just rock star it. Just
Okay. All right. All right. You want me to take it off?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that was really a great, foundation for my career. And then you find yourself working with, some of the, I think, great companies in the world. And at that time, that meant you were working for a U.S. company. Right. And so I had an opportunity to watch, wander, learn from, some amazing executives. But a good part of my career was in the U.S. as well. So I was commuting, for example, in my last job to Europe in Philadelphia almost, weekly. You're on a plane somewhere, but I always kept my family in Toronto. So when I left SAP, which was my last company, global company, $100 million valuation, I was the global chief operating officer and ran North America, which was their biggest region. I definitely wanted to do something in Canada. And at SAP, we were a company that originated, when I first joined it, focused on industry solutions, and I love that because you end up really talking about the business and thinking about digital transformations and how you get at it. We moved away from that to be really focused on a capability that you could sell to every industry, HR, finance, technologies like SuccessFactors that really changed the way companies worked, and I always felt like we missed an opportunity. And when Altis Group came to me, and I did my view of where this company could be, it was a perfect storm. You have an industry-leading brand like Argus. You have an industry in transformation. I didn't believe through my thesis that adoption rates were anything like any other industry, and it was going to change because with the institutionalization of commercial real estate, you had to have data, you had to have systems, you had to have kind of insights. And so relative to running a software company in the U.S. or taking another job in the U.S., it's an amazing opportunity to lead a public company in an industry that's transforming in the city I want to live in. So that's how I ended up here.
Right.
And so off camera, you spoke briefly about starting your own company.
Yeah.
I think you could speak to that.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I took over a private company after I left Xerox. So you go out of a global job where you're running one of their large businesses and you go to a basically zero revenue startup, big change. And I wanted to do that. And part of your first question, I think, is, that was the linear view of how I got here. You take a job to take another job to, get up. But my own experience, and if I had to talk about, what drives me, is the opportunity to learn, to take on a different challenge. And I've kind of wandered through my career trying to do that. Like where inside a company, if I was leading a sales division, I wanted to go over and learn about services. Or right. I've even run a lab, if you can believe that, a technology lab where we were building products as part of my role. Loved it because you're working with people that, just think differently, and that forms you as a person. So I think the path forward was always about learning. So when I left Xerox, I said, I'm going to just do a startup. I'm going to do an early stage venture-backed company. Met some folks on this board that were looking to really turn this company around, get it charged up on sales. They had a great product, and it was an amazing opportunity. And I took the job, almost to say that I wanted to punch that ticket in my career. I wanted to work for a venture-backed company, and it was great. But I was telling you offline, hardest thing I ever did. Every day you're figuring out how to make payroll, like we're trying to raise more money. That at a large company like SAP or Xerox, you're just trying to make sure the pipeline lands properly. Here, it's like, I got to get a deal, one. And if I don't get that deal this quarter, then, it's going to put some real pressure on our ability to raise money, right? So just a whole different orientation of stress and pressure. It's like, business stress is different from personal stress. Am I going to get paid? In business, when you work in a big company,
I find them to be very similar.
No. If you work in a big company, you're going to get paid. You work in a small company, we may not be able to pay people, and that's why I have so much admiration for entrepreneurs. And what I got out of that is that, when you start working in a company like Altus or SAP, when people start saying, we're missing this feature or we're not competitive here, and then you've had the experience of working in a small company, it's like you have zero empathy for people that are moaning and groaning. It's like, guys, like, we got lots. We're in a great building. Right. We have good enough products. Now it's just about, hustle. And so that's my orientation. Great experience. And what it gave me, having done that, is that it just charged me up on, the confidence, the ability to deal with problems in a large company. But I also learned that that's where I could probably be most effective and I enjoy it the most, which is part of the idea of pursuing your career, the ability to find a job or a role, even as the CEO, that's really important, that you really like doing and you're good at, is the pursuit of an amazing life. And so I always tell people in my company that, you got to push that agenda. You got to really start really understanding, even though people get into a career and they say they love it, but you should explore a little bit broadly. You should find out what else turns you on, because as you get older, every 5 years, things change. Mm-hmm. Your interests change, just like it does in your personal life.
Right. Can you talk about when you got to Altus then in 2012?
Yeah.
In 2011 or 2012?
2012.
I remember when I joined Colliers as a new graduate, I got in here and I was thinking, this seems a little archaic, the way that the processes work, and you grow to understand that this is kind of just all commercial real estate.
Yeah.
And Colliers is making great strides. But can you talk about some of what you saw in 2012 and some of your early missions to change the company at Altus?
Yeah, the big thing that Altus did in terms of their transformation is obviously buying Argus. So you're moving from a services company primarily to be a software and technology company, but to run a software business is a skill that you need that's different from maybe what they had before I joined there. And so get this, I come in, this is a standard in the industry. It's a product that was built before the internet, wasn't web-based, and we decided that we were going to move it from a single asset valuation product to a portfolio product. So effectively, to be able to have portfolio managers, asset managers do modeling, forecasting, budgeting, at a level where they can look at their portfolios. And we had a long-term version, but that was the first playbook, of which that creates amazing efficiency, a better product. And we go to the market and we tell them, hey, guess what, guys? We're going to modernize Argus. And everyone told me, no, don't change this product. We love it.
We just learned.
We already know it.
Learned how to use it.
We just learned how to use it. Don't change it. I'm like, guys, this is a 25-year-old product. And we had huge pushback on changing Argus. And I learned for the first time through that people like software only twice. When you buy it and when you try and take it away from them. Other than that, there's features missing, there's problems, there's issues, right? And so we had to convince the market to change. And at that point, people didn't see the need. Fast forward, 7 years later, there's now, at that point, you could count software companies in the real estate industry in the hundreds. Now there's over 3,000 software companies serving the commercial real estate industry. I call that the push era. A lot of venture, a lot of interesting startups. People like Nick Ramito at VTS was in a job like yours, and he said, gosh, we can do better. He started a great company called VTS. So really huge amount of activity going on to present new ways of doing business with younger people. And I shouldn't just say university younger people, but people say it could be better. The latest wave that's going on is the pull economy, and this is a big change. The pull economy is now, younger CEOs, aggressive investment companies, them, PE firms, that are coming in the market and say, I want data, I want advanced software, I want to create advantage through new tools, I want to have productivity in my buildings, I want to try new asset classes,
right.
And I want to use technology and data to drive everything I do in the business, right? So that's the pull economy that's going now.
Right.
And now you're going to see real acceleration in terms of how people use technology. And so that's what I would have predicted, not to say that I have a license on how industries are going to evolve, but now it's really, really taken off. It's pretty cool.
Right. Well, just a couple of years ago when Kyle Dubas became the GM for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's the direction that you're
See, that's a
talking
problem for me because I'm older and I see these young guys coming in and changing. Now they're great customers, but it's funny. It's funny you say that. It's I actually huge Leaf fan, first of all, but I'm really always intrigued on how things change so fast. Because if you look at Kyle Dubas, the change in a Mike Babcock, and then all of a sudden every coach in the league's losing their job. It's like, what happened, right? And that's how transformations happen, where all of a sudden the universe wakes up and says the way we've been doing it is not meeting today's requirement to make it a better economy.
Right.
I feel like that there's a parallel to pick up on your idea to real estate. All of a sudden the universe that is real estate CEOs, developers have woken up and said, there's a better way to do this.
It's an exciting time.
There's a hockey analogy. Did you think we'd do a hockey analogy on your podcast? So
He loves it.
So can we talk about...
You keep on looking over there like, come on, help me out here.
No.
I want to see how far this hockey analogy goes.
Yeah. I always look over because we don't have an order to these things.
Yeah, no
so
problem.
I don't know if he's going to jump in. I'd like to talk about the progression of Proptech and data and everything for the next 5 years. But first, can you tell us about Altus's plan for the next 5 years? You have these three business lines with the software, what you guys have in data, and then the service aspect, right?
Yep.
So where are we going to see those going?
Yeah, look at if you're running a company today, I think Altis Group, in my opinion, mirrors what every company should be thinking. How could you not be using software and data to change the way you do business? And we're in the fortunate position where we can directly influence it. It's collecting in our cost division, collecting data on all of the projects we're working on to give you good visibility, tracking, benchmarking, cost to build kind of data. So we have the software, we have the data, and we have the people that are doing the work. And you want that to create competitive advantage in our offerings. but it's a mirror on what the way companies should be thinking about, operating whatever part of the business that they're in. Everywhere from property management to, cost of construction to ongoing performance valuation. At this point, to have metrics like every other industry in the world that determine how are you doing in terms of driving performance, but actually doing it against best-in-class performance in the industry is a norm in every other part of the, in every other industry. And so, it's coming to our universe of commercial real estate. We're a company that's just doing it. And so I think for Altis Group, if you look at the next 5 years, we have, 7,000 software customers, over 50,000 professional services customers. We have in Argus tens of thousands of users, and we create hundreds of thousands of pieces of information that get used once, thrown away, or locked inside people's hard drives that we're pushing now into the cloud. And that's going to give companies an opportunity to really start taking their data and using it as an opportunity to really control, understand, determine where they're taking their business. And we want to be right at the center of that. And that doesn't mean we're going to become a data business. What that means is that we're going to combine those capabilities with customers to light them up, to give them the ability to get at that data. We'll also partner with companies like Yardi or VTS in the industry to make data work inside a company easier, which takes costs out, but also gives you visibility across all of the different data points. And through that, not unlike some work we're doing in the U.S. in one of our data businesses, we'll also collect that data for the industry and find ourselves, partnering to give benchmarks and, over time working with companies to create indexes. So I think in the next 5 years, by our position in North America and globally, we have an opportunity to be a major participant with others in the industry to really open up, the opportunity to get data, to share data, to manage data, which virtually every large real estate company in the world is trying to figure out right now. So that's a perfect connection. If we can help them achieve their goals and then take it a step further, be an important player in the industry, then we'll have achieved a lot in the next 5 years.
Right. And everybody wins. Customers.
Everybody wins.
Everybody's
Altis
got
Group.
information.
Yeah.
So where do you see the real estate industry going in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of like a lot of technological changes? We got blockchain, augmented reality, 3D printing.
Yep.
Like I saw a video yesterday, somebody's 3D printing a house with the concrete type of thing, and AI stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, look, as I said, it's now a pull economy. I just did a panel at the the Canadian Real Estate Forum here in Toronto last week, and we had Michael Turner from Oxford. We had Jim Young, who is a consultant to the global commercial real estate industry, and Ajay, who talked about artificial intelligence. I mean, you wouldn't see that 4 years ago, a panel that looked like that. And specifically, what you're seeing with people like Michael Turner and many of the CEOs I know in the real estate industry, they're building platforms. They want to be able to actually use this technology to operate their businesses differently. How much should we charge for a lease in real time? What is the implications of fractional ownership? Who are my partners and how are they doing? When we look at a investment, what are the things that we could do to determine value? Once you own an asset, how do you take cost out? How do you sweat the asset in a way that materially takes cost down? Energy, the ability to, create tenant experience that also marries up with lower costs. These are all opportunities that are going to create value from the traditional way of creating value where you buy low and sell high. Now it's going to be about operating, design, approaches, effectiveness, and at the same time, we really have an opportunity to use some of this new technology to really change the way commerce is completed. Like a simple thing. If you are a major fund in the U.S., you're operating a fund. Historically, what you did is you targeted large investors, pension funds, banks, insurance companies. But people want liquidity. So if you could actually take a physical asset, immediately moved into a daily pricing algorithm, meaning make it transactional, which we're starting to do now for some of the funds in the U.S., but then go to full liquidity with data that really causes the ability to actually take inbound data about the loss of a lease or the gain of a lease, interest rate sensitivity, a macro impact like Brexit. It start taking public, private data and driving that into an AI type of environment that could stand the test of scrutiny, the financial and regulatory scrutiny. That opens a door to incredible liquidity where you as a 401k investor, or if you wanted to put, that building in your fund where you own 0.003% of the building, is the way technology is going to really change this industry. Right. Simple idea. Mm-hmm. But I'll give you one more. Like I was in Japan at a conference in the spring, and Singapore at a conference in the spring, and somebody asked me a question at the end. I haven't even thought about it. Okay, Bob, where's real estate going to be in 10 years? Get out there. Just think about it. And I thought to myself, the most amazing thing is that if you start with a great piece of property and you are deciding that you're going to build a multifamily, a little bit of rent, a little bit of sale, why wouldn't you start thinking about using auctioning technology to actually take that asset and say, we're prepared to give up this amount of square feet, and you'll have the ability to influence the eventual design of the building, and you'll actually have to pay for that. So create demand, and actually even give them gaming technology to imagine what could be possible. So looking out, in the future, there's going to be companies out there. There already is that, and I'm not talking about venture-backed small companies. There's companies out there that are going to figure out how to take this technology and create value, because what happens now is they build some things. They use the technology to understand, is it 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom? How much should we charge for that? Who's going to be the endpoint tenant? Right. Like, walk right past that and let the market decide who wants to be in the building, even before you put a spade in the ground. Get an option going on some part of that asset for somebody that wants to be in that location. And I love those ideas. So that's how I think about, change. It's not, is AI going to, or is blockchain going to create better liquidity? It's like, I want to take this technology and change the way I do business.
That's a neat concept I've actually never thought about. Just like pre-sales on condos that you design your own space effectively. You're like,
pay more for that.
What? I want 973 square feet.
Yeah, and you pay for it.
Yeah, you pay for it.
You build parameters as an example
you have some
of
templates.
what, how much you're prepared to give up, how much you want to control, and then let people go at it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what that does for the brokerage industry, but maybe they should put that technology out there. So,
probably. Yeah. Maybe we'll do it. So taking that one step further, you've already mentioned so many great ideas. Are there any specific companies that you can highlight that are really maybe game changers at this point?
Yeah, I think the companies that I've been tracking most lately are the data companies, because at the end of the day, in a lot of other industries, people are using software and data to change the way they're doing business. So there's some early, really interesting companies in data that are taking public data at scale, marrying up with your proprietary data to really think about controlling that around decision making. Status of the creating investment theses about a particular neighborhood, where you combine things like hedonic modeling or trending in terms of house prices, both residential and commercial, to really isolate in on hot, neighborhoods or up and coming neighborhoods, which is, seems obvious, but, more and more, you start looking at these companies that really can predict with a high likelihood of success the speed of transformation of a neighborhood, and start thinking about what kind of environment is going to evolve, what's available. And for me, we'll probably talk about this a little bit when we start thinking about our data business in Canada with our housing price index and hedonic modeling and all the other work that we're doing. We're trying to imagine that we could build a data environment that, for the smart people, originally data scientists, but eventually just general practitioners in this industry, where they could take that data and turn it into real competitive advantage. And so I'm really tracking and like a lot of the cool new data companies that are coming out.
Interesting. It seems like the industry then might move in a direction that is less, contractors knocking on doors and doing things a more simple way, trying to buy off market, like you were saying.
Right.
It's exciting. What else do we have here?
So you guys are pretty unique given the fact that you're a software company, but you actually, in fact, have such a massive service line.
Yeah.
Of you've got cost consultants, tax reassessment
Yeah.
people, appraisers, obviously, stuff like that. In what ways are you enhancing their workflow? Because with all this technology, you could presumably make one appraiser do 100 times the amount of work.
Yeah. I think the best story I can tell you about that is in property tax, because we built up a pretty strong position. I mean, we're you always have to be careful in public company, the words you use. We're a very, very strong provider, leading provider. I won't say dominant but people could argue that we are in Canada. We basically do work with virtually all the large providers.
Everybody's saying it. So, I'm not saying it, but everybody's saying it.
Yeah. So really, what's interesting there is that our origins are working with the large players in the market. In the U.S., we took an industry approach because of the fact that it's an unconsolidated market down there. There's no big players, and that's really worked well. So we're really strong in healthcare, hospitality, doing a bunch of stuff in retail, particularly big box retail, and we've identified a couple of other industries where we're doubling down on. And then in the UK, when I joined the company, we were like a 2 or 3% share. We got to about 6 or 7, which makes us, top 3. We bought a company in the UK that equally had about 4 or 5, and put those two companies together, and now we're at 20% share. We think we can get to 30% share organically, but we've gone after the mid-market. It's a tenant-based system over there. The occupant pays the ratings or the tax over there. 3 different models, and what we're doing now is a digital transformation that combines the best of the 3. And to do that, what you have to do in property tax, which is similar to appraisals, is you're dealing at the center of it. You're looking for situations where the government, the tax authority has made an error. Right. And so we're working on behalf of, the owners and tenants to make sure we get it, which is square on a data game. It's like a data war. Right. And whoever has the best data has an opportunity to really look for those opportunities to create value. And so that's universal. All 3 of those business models, we have to build data. So I'm on a tear. We're on a tear as part of our digital transformation to collect, to manage, to develop data at scale. And if you think about it, in the UK alone, we have 60, 70,000 establishments that we collect data on to appeal. That's pretty cool data. There's rent rolls in there. There's sale information and 200, 300 other data points. So with respect to that, this is data that people really could use to run their business as well. So in the middle of everything we're doing, and part of the reason I'm talking to a lot of those data companies, we are definitely making sure that we control data, manage data. Because it goes a bit like this. If I can find an appeal in Toronto that for a strip mall in Scarborough where they got it wrong and we win that appeal, and then take that same logic to all the strip malls in Toronto, then you also get repeatability. Mm-hmm. You didn't make one mistake, you made 25 mistakes, right? And look, we're not competing with the tax authority. We're actually just helping them get it right. And it's a nuance. It's an important one. Because at the end of the day, what we want to do is make sure that we create the value without being antagonistic. And so data is an equalizer on that. Because when you give them the data, then you get an opportunity to get through an appeal in a way that's successful for both parties. Yeah. They just want to be behind you. But here's the cool thing. Given that we have all this data, we can now, having won an appeal, take that to somebody that owns a property and say, here's what you could do with your property. Right. So data leads to selling and to other opportunities to run the business. So what we're doing in our business is we're doing a complete digital transformation where we have data for identifying opportunities. We have data for showing value to the large players. We have data to do the work. We actually have data to aid the consultants when they do a survey, as an example, that allows them to do it at a lower cost with most of the data already done. And we have data to follow up with our customers to show them in their workflows that they're getting paid properly. And we have data to show the value against competitors for our whole portfolio. And so that's how we think about, property tax, which you might not think of as an advanced or, technology-oriented business. We absolutely want to build a technology and data platform for a business like that.
Wow.
So the core theme is data.
Yeah.
It's important.
Buy stuff in data centers immediately.
Yeah.
And
it's seriously, buy all the data centers. Or just they need to store
Altus.
it somewhere. Yeah.
But you think about that, like, honestly, it's like, obviously we're a company that's in the technology and services business, but the theme is that you want to control your data inside your company as well. And again, the large companies are trying to figure out how to do that. And you don't want to work for a company that isn't thinking about software and data and running their business in the future. Mm-hmm. Right. You will be run over.
Well, I think that
very quickly.
Because Brett Miller talked about that, CEO of Canderel. He was talking about he just became the CEO of that company, and he's trying to work on, they have 3 different business platforms, or he's working on a method of integrating all of that information and data together into a singular platform.
Right.
He's talking about Yardi, but Yardi isn't powerful enough, so he's working on some sort of thing, or looking for something to actually bridge that gap so that they aren't working in silos anymore, and that, cross use of information.
Right. For sure. And Brett's a super smart guy. He really is, I knew him a little bit when he came into JLL and some of the work that he did there. And, I think Canderel's an amazing platform. And it's just another example by demographic, and energy and, enthusiasm for technology of a CEO, president that, will have a big impact on their competitiveness, the way they're thinking about the business. And that's that. Remember when I was talking about the pull? Mm-hmm. That's the pull.
Yeah.
And as a data software services company, if we can see that as a universal opportunity, 40, 50 CEOs trying to solve the same problem, that's how you build a great technology company.
Yeah.
Can you talk about leadership? Can we go a different direction, talk about leadership? So Altus has what 2,500 employees, something like that. We are individually trying to build our own businesses. I'm trying to build my silo within Colliers and with my team. We're trying to build the commercial real estate library as a company. Can you talk about a few tips for being a successful leader and building an organization?
Yeah. I think for me anyways, it's really about authenticity, right? I think part of the trick, and it's become more and more important, is this concept of diversity has historically been a little bit about, gender, backgrounds, education, skills. And the reality is that for me, diversity is building a company where you listen. Because you could get all diversity you want against the makeup that I described. But if you don't have an opportunity to put that diversity to work, it's not a great company. And so what you'll hear from people at Altis Group, I think about me, is I'm always asking questions. I'm wandering around. I'm sitting at people's desk. I call people out of the blue, skip level 3 levels. What do you think about this? And trying to assemble that against a fabric of, what their job is or what they're doing or what their backgrounds are. When you bring somebody into our company that's been the last 5 years in asset management, they weren't on the vendor side. They were actually buying product. That gives you a whole different view of how they view what we're doing. And so I really believe that the best ideas come from many. Mm-hmm. As a CEO or as a business unit leader, if you never had to make a decision, that'd be a good leader. Meaning that, and you definitely never had to take credit for a decision, that would be a good leader. Meaning that you've hired well, you listen, you learn how to take that listening into action, you tested that action. Because the other thing I've said so many times is that I'm not afraid to make decisions. Really, okay, we're going there. Because what happens when you as a CEO or when you work in a large global company, the decisions you have to take, the hard ones, always come with a lot of downside, and so that's why people freeze on decisions. Right. I just take them, but I don't feel like I own them. As soon as you take them, you're doing remediation. We know what the downside is. We're going to go after it, and to really get to be that, person, that leader. The best way to do it is to really tap into this diverse, set of people and ideas to make that decision, and then keep checking. Mm-hmm. Be on the phone. Like when I'm driving home, that's like, okay, how was the day? What's going on? Gee, I'm going to phone John in, usually in Seattle or California, because it's like 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. But in the morning, I'm phoning the guys in the UK. Right. Hey, what do you think about this? We're trying to do that. Where are you going with that? Just and think about it. If you get a call like that from, the CEO of Colliers, I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? And so, and I'm really actually very interested. I'm not doing it to have the employee feel good, but it's a great byproduct. Yeah. I'm doing it to learn, right?
Yeah. Right. That's really, you really practice what you preach. I mean, when you walked in here, you asked Garrett like 20 questions about Trez and his background and everything like that. You can really see. Yeah. So encouraging a dialogue between all of your...
For sure. Why would you, like say we talk about data, why would you hire 2 or 3 young data people or a data scientist and put them in a back room? Right. If it's really important. Wouldn't the CEO and other business leaders want to know this person?
Right.
Still a social world we look in, mm-hmm. and how they look at life. I think that's pretty cool. And particularly as you get a little bit older, the world can pass you by pretty fast these days. And so I also am really kind of intrigued on trying to, what apps do you have on your phone?
Right.
How are you thinking about how we should run business? I don't have, I keep talking about can we actually build a modern company? I've been in business for 35 years longer, I think. So what right do I have to define a modern company? I need others
Right.
to tell me what do they want, and particularly these days as a leader, you're doing, you're checked, you're challenged, not only by your board, not only by your management team, but the person who just joined the company gets to go on Glassdoor and say,
Yeah.
"You're not very good. Our CEO is terrible."
Right.
So the orientation of developing a modern, interesting, great company. I know the ingredients. The ingredients are you have to have technology in your business. You have to have people that listen, but the bar keeps getting higher because the people that are coming out of university have higher expectations. They're more mature in their thinking. They have more disciplines to pull from. And so they push you. They challenge you. Another reason to keep checking and talking.
Right.
It's great to learn from the front line because they're the ones that are, out there actually interacting with customers on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of industries could take, lessons from that.
Sure.
And
Yeah, and I look at, if you know this, if you believe in building a platform of software and data, the competition for those resources in other industries is high. So if you don't create, that kind of agreement, partnership, contract, I call it, with our employees about, are we meeting your expectation? You don't get to compete for those people.
Right.
Sean, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
Well, yeah, actually, I do have one.
Yeah, Sean.
I think Altus and Argus are, they're quite, they're obviously synonymous with one another. I was wondering, how do you manage sort of the culture between sort of it being a technology company and sort of the structure that's there versus potentially your service line being a little bit more structured?
Right.
How do you manage that?
That's such a great question because we're a combination. I think we've done for sure over 60 acquisitions of entrepreneurial companies over our 14-year period. So that brings some complexity. You have a professional responsibility, for example, in terms of how our consultants conduct appraisals. There's a regulatory body that defines how they have to do work and the ethics associated with that. You have, a development, like we have 200 developers in London that are working with a product management team in Houston and, a business team in Toronto and Chicago. So that creates, complexity of harmonizing a culture and trying to drive the kind of change. It's really, really fascinating to think about it. And the way I say it, and I just talked about it a little bit, it's like that you in your career have to be somebody that's thinking about what are these other disciplines and what do they mean to you. And so it's creating this idea that, I said it this way, how could you work in a company that wasn't thinking about software and data? And I really push that with the services teams. We got to innovate. We got to try different things. We got to collect your data. We got to take, we got to create efficiencies. Technology leaves the better work and takes away the boring work if you do it properly. So we push that over there. But what's really amazing is that I truly believe that in real estate, technology, there's always going to be a need for knowledge, like expertise, people that can work with our clients to understand not only the value of the technology, but the meaning of the data that the technology provides. And it's, if I had to describe where Altis Group is going, we want to be an information services business. So if we collect, complex global data on industries and markets, there'll be some part of us that's always taking that and working in between the technology and the client to interpret to bring it to their knowledge base. And so that's a big part of what we do is we say that, like every industry, things like artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to commoditize the basic work, but the high value work for our company as an information services business will always be there. And we touch through our services business all aspects of the real estate value chain, and that comes back into our product roadmaps. So it's pretty cool that, you know, the same people work in a company that use the technology and build the technology. And so that's how we try and make that. It's kind of a codependency or an opportunity to have a broad contribution to the strategy of the company. But it's tough. You know, it's not just the different disciplines. It's the complexity of age, geography, different cultures. We even, you know, one of the big things that that's been pretty successful for us is we built a pretty innovative offshore capacity for software development in India. After doing a review globally about where we're doing, we landed on a strategy in India, and it's been amazing. The pride they have and the commitment to our company is as good as anywhere in the company. And it's not a commodity. They're driving value for our company, and I love it. So it's not perfect, trust me. And, you know, there's all sorts of challenges in the question you have, but that's kind of the way we're guarding ourselves, is that everybody can contribute.
Great. Before the last question, is there anything that you want to highlight that Altus is working on right now that people should go check out, whether they're in brokerage or finance or what have you?
Yeah, I mean, that we're building right now. We like to sell the products that we already have in the market, not the stuff we might have in the market.
Okay, well then what you
that's
have.
That's an axiom of software. You know, everybody, like, salespeople want to sell the next thing. I'm like, just sell what we got now. Like, look at, you know, with Argus data now in the cloud. This is the big change that's going on is in this push economy, these companies that are building technology, they're coming at it, for the most part, at point problems. I'll fix your revenue problem. I'll fix your leasing problem. I'll make your building more efficient. I'll give you a IoT capability to collect data. And our industry doesn't operate like that. It's a workflow industry, meaning when you're looking at an acquisition, you're working with finance, you might be working with a broker. And so in some industries and the way these companies are building product, it's like a linear approach. And with Argus in the cloud, we're now starting to think about a workflow approach. So can we build applications that, take a very simple example, that, you know, could talk to how Colliers works with, you know, Pickett Canderel, who works with their investors, who works with property managers. If we were, if you at Colliers were getting ready to put that great building over there up for sale, it's the Altis Group building across the street. Wouldn't it be great? You know you're going to run an Argus file to be able to sell that building, and it's going to be something that the potential acquirers would look at. So once you want to make that available in the cloud, and so in an offering memorandum, maybe there's a file that has 5 data points. You sign the NDA, you get 25 data points. You actually get shortlisted, you get the file. That file in the cloud then gets, you know, sent into your acquisitions team. It goes over to finance. You start comparing it against your current investment thesis or budget. You actually think about what it's going to do to your existing portfolio because you have the Argus file. Right. So starting to think more and more, and this is a simple example. There's a lot of other, you know, interesting ones that we're building for. Being able to take that file once and make it available to the workflow, the decision making of acquisitions is the kind of things that people should be thinking about, in a simple way to start creating efficiency. And if it can create collaboration, meaning that you can actually put a file out there where a broker could be talking to an acquirer and say, well, I don't understand why you're using, this interest rate, or I don't get why,
Right.
The revenue looks like this, and I want to project the revenue to look like that, or I want to put this much capital into it. And sitting with your investment advisor or a broker to actually do it, and then doing it at a portfolio level to build a thesis, that's pretty cool. So that's the big thing that Argus in the cloud is going to do in its origination. It's build a ability for people to collaborate around the file, and right beside that to benchmark in that file. So that's kind of in the market now. It's what people should start looking at, and it sets up a whole different way that the industry can move. Coming back from when I joined 7 years ago, where it was a 25-year-old product that did one asset at a time.
Right.
Literally, what would happen is people would take 10 Argus DCF files, put them in an Excel spreadsheet. They would go to the acquisitions group and say, here's our view of what this portfolio looks like. They get 25 changes. They would take out of Excel, put them in 10 different DCFs, model, and then put it back in Excel, get 2 more changes. I mean, literally tens of hours of work. Now you can actually model collaboratively in the cloud and, have decision-making right in the meeting.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's a big change.
And taking that, as you mentioned, boring work and replacing it with meaningful work as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Along
Routine.
the process. Yeah.
Now, we won't. Maybe there won't be as many analysts, which is not perfect,
Right.
but we'll get the analysts to do other work, right?
Yeah. I think that's fine.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's fine. Did you have any more questions, or the last?
No,
Okay.
do the last one.
The final question. This one is called the 3 truths. So imagine years from now, you live a very long and successful life. You long and successful career, and break every skiing record that you ever wanted to. But it's your last day, and your entire family is around you, and your friends are around you. And for whatever reason, every interview that you've ever done, every book you've ever written, it's all been erased. And you have 3 short notes to pass on to your family and friends. What would you put on those notes?
Be a good person, bring good people into our life, and make sure you find something that you like doing every day.
That was the fastest I think anybody's ever answered that question.
Thank you,
Pretty
Bob.
straightforward. Great
Thank-
meeting you guys.
great
Thanks for
having you,
doing this. Real pleasure. Thank you. Awesome.